On her 33rd birthday, a woman vanished beneath raging waters, a moment that felt like nature's cruel joke. She was swept away not in war or malice, but by an invisible wall of water, turning quiet celebration into urgent mystery. What happened to Chenoa No Nickerson in that flash flood, and why did it take days to find the truth? Today, we unravel the story, not as spectacle, but as a tribute to a life carried away so quickly, and a family's quiet mission born from heartbreak. As the river currents swallowed hope, there began a story of loss, resilience, and the reverberating legacy one life can leave behind. The clock was August 22nd, 2024. Chenoa Nickerson, a vibrant 33-year-old from Gilbert, Arizona, chose to spend her birthday hiking deep into the Grand Canyon's Havasu region, near where Havasu Creek meets the Colorado River. With her husband by her side, the two ventured into terrain famed for its beauty and its hidden peril. Shortly before 1:30 p.m., torrential monsoon rain formed without warning. In a matter of minutes, Serene Creek waters transformed, surging with terrifying speed. A flash flood struck, uprooting confidence and safety alike. Chenoa and her husband were swept into the torrent. Rafters in the vicinity managed to rescue him, but she disappeared almost instantly. In that instant, what began as celebration turned into a desperate search. Over the following days, the National Park Service launched a relentless search and rescue operation. Teams fanned out by air, ground, and river, concentrating on the confluence where Havasu Creek joins the Colorado River. Meanwhile, more than 100 visitors and tribal members stranded by the flood required evacuation. The Arizona National Guard was activated, using UH-60 Blackhawk helicopters to reach remote areas and remove those in immediate danger. Still, one person remained missing. For Chenoa's family, every hour stretched with agony. Her sisters, Tamara Morales and Kira Farkas, along with her brother Jenosh, all felt the unbearable weight of uncertainty and hope entwined. Statements posted and shared reflected profound faith in the team's searching and a desperate plea to not give up. "We love her very much," Tamara wrote. "We are not giving up on her." 3 days later, on August 25th at approximately 11:30 a.m., a commercial river trip discovered her body near River Mile 176 on the Colorado River Latanoudeva, approximately 19 to 20 miles downstream from where she had vanished. Park rangers responded swiftly, recovering her body, transporting it by helicopter to the canyon rim, and transferring it to the Coconino County Medical Examiner. In the hours that followed, the family expressed deep, sincere gratitude for the efforts of the search and rescue teams. "Her memory will never fade," they wrote, "and her light will forever be a part of all of us." In the days and weeks that followed, the family sought to turn tragedy into purpose. They established a memorial initiative, Chenoa's Forever Fund, created in partnership with the Grand Canyon Conservancy to support the Grand Canyon National Park Search and Rescue, SAR, program. The fund isn't symbolic. It's created in partnership with the Grand Canyon Conservancy to support the Grand Canyon National Park Search and Rescue, AR, program. The fund isn't symbolic. It serves tangible needs, updating vital equipment like underwater breathing apparatus and pack rafts, funding training for rappelling, swiftwater rescue, logistics, and supporting programs for first responders, including family liaisons and resiliency programs. Chenoa's siblings shared, with humble clarity, that this was exactly what she would have wanted, paying forward the kindness and bravery that had brought her home and brought closure to her family. There is no dramatic villain here, not a murderer, not even negligence. Instead, the tragedy stems from a natural force, one that can turn a peaceful birthday trek into a catastrophe in moments. And yet, within that tragedy, emerges human dignity, rescue teams who pursued every lead, and a family determined to ensure that the service that brought them closure continues to help others. In Chenoa's story, we confront a truth often overlooked, that the greatest mysteries aren't always crimes, but the fragility of life, and how swiftly the ordinary can turn perilous. Her birthday promised joy, exploration, connection with nature, and it did, right up until the invisible threat arrived in one thunderous wave. But beyond the heartbreak lies a quieter mystery worth remembering. How a single life, ended too soon, can still spark enduring hope. A fund, a legacy, not born from vengeance, but from gratitude. The question that lingers, what would we do if the unthinkable struck someone we love? And in that answer lies the power of community, memory, and purpose. As you walk through parks near water or canyon walls, let Chenoa's memory remind you to respect nature, to treasure ordinary moments, and to honor those who dedicate themselves to saving us, even when we cannot save ourselves. Late one April afternoon, a 68-year-old man set out for a walk in one of his favorite places, Deep Creek, a quiet stretch of wilderness known for its calm waters and winding trails. It was the kind of place he'd been to many times before, a place where the world seemed to slow down. His name was Gordon Kaye. He was from Tampa, Florida, a retired man who had built a peaceful routine in his later years. Friends described him as gentle, patient, and deeply connected to nature. He found joy in the sound of wind brushing through the trees, in the steady rhythm of his footsteps along the path. On that spring day in April 2023, there was no reason to believe this walk would be any different. The weather was mild, the trails familiar. But by nightfall, Gordon had not returned. His wife grew concerned as the hours passed. Calls went unanswered. The sun dipped behind the ridgeline, and shadows began to claim the forest. When she realized he wasn't coming back, she contacted authorities. Within hours, the search began. Rangers arrived first, then deputies, then volunteers. The Deep Creek area, so serene by day, took on a different tone under the dim light of flashlights. That night, a quiet urgency settled over the forest. The hours stretched, and still there was no sign. Gordon Kaye had stepped into the woods, and somehow he had not stepped out. Deep Creek is a place of contrasts. In daylight, its beauty is undeniable. Gentle streams, green slopes, and sunlight filtering through high canopies. But as darkness falls, its pathways twist into obscurity, and the sounds of wildlife become the only markers in the dark. When word spread that a man was missing, the response was immediate. Rangers called in reinforcements. Over the next day, the search swelled to involve 29 agencies: law enforcement, park services, search and rescue teams, and local volunteers. They began with the logical places: the main trails, riverbanks, picnic areas. From there, the search expanded, checking side trails, unmarked paths, and dense thickets. Aerial drones scanned from above, their thermal cameras searching for the faintest trace of body heat. On the ground, teams spread out in careful grids, marking sections as cleared before moving on. Canine units tried to follow his scent, but the trail seemed to fade as quickly as it appeared. The forest gave nothing back. No footprints, no belongings left behind. For those searching, it was both frustrating and unsettling. This wasn't a vast mountain range with endless caves. This was a defined area. And yet, somehow, it was as if Gordon had stepped off the map. By the second night, the urgency deepened. Food, water, and temperature could all play a role in survival. But the question hung heavier than the air. How could a man so familiar with the outdoors disappear in such a contained space? To understand the weight of his disappearance, you have to know who Gordon Kaye was. Born and raised in Florida, he spent much of his life in education, working patiently with students and guiding young minds. Retirement didn't slow him down. It simply gave him more time to enjoy the outdoors. Friends recall his calm voice, the way he'd pause mid-conversation to watch a bird take flight. His wife spoke of how much he loved the quiet. No television blaring, no constant noise, just the hum of the world outside. He was the kind of person who planned ahead. He carried water, wore proper shoes, and kept his phone charged. That's part of why this disappearance felt so strange. This wasn't someone likely to wander off, unprepared. When he didn't come home that night, the news spread quickly among friends and neighbors. Some joined the search, others brought food for the teams. It wasn't just a missing persons case. It was a community effort to bring one of their own back. But as each day passed without results, unease began to set in. It wasn't just about finding him. It was about understanding how this could have happened. Had he fallen somewhere hidden from view? Had he taken a wrong turn and found himself unable to get back? Or was there something about Deep Creek, something unseen, that held him there? The questions multiplied, but the forest stayed silent. The search for Gordon became a study in precision. Every tool, every method was brought to bear. Searchers mapped out zones and covered them inch by inch. Thermal drones flew repeated passes over the canopy. Teams pushed into places that barely qualified as trails: steep slopes, thick underbrush, hidden gullies. Every sound was noted, every movement checked. Cell tower data was reviewed to pinpoint the last time Gordon's phone connected to a network. It helped narrow the possible area, but in practice, it was still a massive space to cover. Search dogs picked up faint scents in more than one direction, making it difficult to lock onto a clear path. Rangers marked possible points of interest, returned to them, and ruled them out one by one. As the days passed, weather added its own challenges. Morning fog limiting visibility, light rain making trails slick. Night searches continued under portable lights, but even the strongest beams were swallowed quickly by the trees. Still, they pressed on. No one wanted to give up on him. There was always the chance that he was somewhere nearby, waiting for help. But there came a moment. No one says exactly when the urgency shifted. It was no longer about rescue in the traditional sense. It became about answers. And in this case, the forest seemed unwilling to give them. Gordon's case was not the first disappearance in Deep Creek, nor in the surrounding parklands. Over the years, others have gone missing. Some found quickly, some never found at all. For the families left behind, the absence of resolution can be as heavy as loss itself. Without answers, every sound in the night, every knock at the door, brings a flicker of hope. The sheer number of people searching for Gordon spoke volumes. 29 agencies, countless hours, hundreds of miles walked. And yet, the result was the same: nothing. The absence of evidence doesn't just leave a mystery, it creates one. It leaves space for theories, for what-ifs, for imagining the final moments in a dozen different ways. For some, that's unbearable. For others, it's the only way to keep hope alive. The case also reminds us of something important. Nature, no matter how familiar, holds its own power. Trails we've walked 100 times can still lead us astray. A wrong step, a shift in weather, a moment's disorientation, that's all it can take. And yet, with Gordon's experience and preparation, many still find it hard to accept that explanation. Which leaves us circling back to the beginning, staring at the same question. How could this happen? Perhaps he's still out there in some way, resting under the trees he loved. Perhaps there was a moment when he simply lost his bearings, and the forest kept him close. Or perhaps there's a piece of this story that no one has uncovered yet. We can't know for sure. Tell someone where you're going, carry what you need, and never take familiarity for granted. Because in the end, it's not just the forest that holds its secrets. Sometimes it's life itself. And those are the mysteries we may never fully solve. He set out on a familiar trail, but what was familiar gave way to nothing but silent pine and unanswered questions. Richard Judd, described in social media updates as either 69 or 72 years old, stood 5'11" and weighed around 150 pounds. He had brown eyes, short gray hair, and a beard. A figure measured in detail. A person defined by presence, not by the absence that would later define him. It was July 25th, 2021, when he embarked on what appeared to be an ordinary day hike. From his camp near Lower Merced Pass Lake, he planned to walk toward Red Peak Pass, a route familiar to many but notable only in hindsight. He carried white trekking poles, wore a navy blue day pack, and dressed simply but purposefully in a blue shirt and gray pants. His vehicle, parked at the Quartz Mountain trailhead, marked the last known point from which his steps began to vanish into the vastness of Yosemite. Initially, concern was quiet and measured. Richard and his hiking partner had separated briefly. Something ordinary, not alarming. But when Richard didn't return, that normal act of solitude took on unexpected weight. Yosemite authorities launched a search. Park rangers, search and rescue teams, and eventually volunteers combed the trail. Yet, no footprints, no discarded gear, no sign of distress emerged from the forest floor. Just hush and their unanswered calls. In the quiet that follows, we slow the pace, inch forward with what we know. Consider the terrain. A landscape of granite ridges, thick forest, sudden elevation shifts. Think of the passage of time, the shifting shadows, the way the wilderness absorbs sound and can swallow a person whole without a trace. What might have happened on that path? Was there a momentary slip on moss-covered stone? A moment of disorientation when landmarks blurred into brush and breeze? Did he pause to admire a distant vista and then walk further, stepping off the trail without warning? We don't know, and that not knowing becomes the pulse beneath the peace. The search over days held hope. Rangers revisited the route. Helicopter sweeps scanned cliffs and valleys. But as week turned into more time, the high-visibility efforts faded into low-profile monitoring, more watchers than seekers, less urgency than quiet perseverance. By staging details gently, we root the pace in the viewer's mind. One moment, a name. The next moment, nothing. The absence becomes more powerful than description. We leave space for the listener to imagine leaves brushing past, the echo of footsteps dimming, the sun moving across the trees until nothing remains but shadow. We honor Richard's presence, his deliberate trek, the sound of his poles tapping the ground, the weight of his pack. We follow his steps until they vanish, then linger. There's no need for sensationalism. The mystery is enough. The forest doesn't explain. The trail doesn't answer. And so we arrive at the close, not with graphic imagery, not with dramatic flourish, but with reflection. Weeks passed. The forest held its silence. Yosemite holds secrets, and Richard Judd became one of them. Search efforts subsided, but his absence remained. We invite the final whisper. The wilderness is breathtaking, generous, unforgiving. It asks of us something deeper: respect, caution, empathy. And perhaps this story is not only about Richard Judd himself, but about every person who walks into the mountains, trusting that solitude and time will return them home. In that unresolved stillness lies a larger truth. Some stories don't reach an ending. For now, all we have is a footprint that disappears, and a life remembered in soft detail. And maybe that is enough to carry forward. Imagine a silent forest, sunlight drifting through towering pines, and a single backpack resting at the edge of a trail, an invitation to a mystery that cannot be forgotten. On June 15, 2005, Michael Allen Feisery set out alone from the quiet edge of Hetch Hetchy Reservoir into Yosemite's remote wilderness. He was 51 years old, an experienced hiker and backpacker, steady, capable, and fully immersed in the rugged rhythm of the backcountry. He planned a careful, well-known loop from Rancheria Falls to Tiltill Mountain, onto Lake Vernon, through Beehive, and then back, an ambitious route, chosen for its solitude and grandeur. A wilderness permit marked the end of his hike by June 19th. When that day came and went without word, alarm mounted. On June 21st, his family reached out, and officials launched a search that stretched across land, air, and human resolve. The search was immediate and thorough. Ground teams, helicopters, canine units, and even the Marines joined in, setting up operations in rugged, remote terrain. Yet the first and only confirmed trace of Michael emerged far off his planned path. Near Tiltill Mountain, his backpack lay beside the trail in steep, treacherous terrain, beyond snowline. Inside the pack, key items were missing: a water bottle, a camera, and a topographical map. Items a careful, experienced hiker would almost certainly keep close. That detail makes the case deeply unsettling. An experienced hiker known for preparation and discipline, leaving water, map, and camera behind. Some speculated he stepped off purposefully to refill water at nearby Tiltill Creek or wandered off to a vantage point. But if that were the case, why leave those items behind? The terrain around Tiltill Mountain is notoriously unforgiving. Sheer granite faces, dense thickets, hidden ravines, where one misstep can vanish a person from sight. An instant, but without a trace. Searchers scoured the slopes, yet found no tracks, no gear, no sign of Michael. Canines couldn't pick scent. Helicopters combed the canopy. Ground parties extended their reach into impossibly steep ravines. Still, the answer remained elusive. In total, the search cost around $500,000. At the time, the most expensive search in Yosemite's history. The scale of the operation matched the depth of uncertainty. By week's end, with no further leads, the search was eventually scaled back. Michael remained missing, the forest holding its silence. People close to the case described Michael with fondness and respect, an intelligent, thoughtful man who cherished nature. His sisters recalled previous adventures where his resilience emerged, like the time he broke his ankle yet crawled back to safety. Some speculative theories circulated. Had he fallen? Become lost? Was there foul play? Even criminal activity in these seldom traveled areas? Theories abound, but all remain unproven. In the days after his disappearance, a family member urged preparedness. The wilderness demands respect, preparation, and humility. One sister even founded a small survival kit initiative to offer hikers essential items: Compass, multi-tool, headlamp, fire starter, mirror, whistle. Tools to address emergencies that words cannot fully prepare us for. Now, we stand at the edge of that same forest with few more answers than he left behind. Michael's final steps remain untraceable. His backpack remains the mysterious punctuation in a story otherwise without closure. Nature can be breathtaking and merciless. Even the knowing, even the experienced, may face sudden turns where skill alone may not suffice. So we end now, not with resolution, for there is none, but with reflection. A man walked into a trail one morning and never walked out. All that remains is that quiet pack, that invisible path, and the questions we carry with us. Perhaps the greatest truth of this story lies in that lingering silence, nature's unsolved whisper, and our shared responsibility to listen carefully to its unspoken warnings.